Hello, my name is Bella Brownlee, and welcome to my accessibility capstone project on Brooks Library, accessibility signage and wayfinding for emergency means of egress of persons with disability.
I'm a fourth-year senior at Central Washington University, studying the 60-credit sociology program. My minors are in accessibility studies and women, gender, and sexuality studies. I grew up reading and going to different libraries throughout my life. I identify as disabled, and I started doing audits through CWU's Archives and Special Collections in spring of 2022, which inspired my capstone project of ADA audits. I did an ADA investigation with Brooks Library. The library has a missed opportunity to follow ADA requirements regarding its signage. This affects people with various disabilities, especially people who are visually impaired or are new to the building.
Who access Brooks Library include employees of CWU, students, as well as visitors. A barrier to accessibility would be the elevator. While doing my research, multiple people would talk to me about how sketchy the elevator was. The buttons are so old that if you push it, they won't go off at times. This would make people who are visually impaired struggle with accessing the elevators.
The project's goals are to help educate Central Washington University on being more adherent to ADA standards to better serve their students. This is done through investigating how adequate Brooks Library is following wayfinding and emergency egress that are related to 2010 ADA standards.
Legal liability and guidelines used with this project include ADA, Means of Egress, Universal Design, and POUR. ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was founded in 1990, and it provided accessibility standards to prevent discrimination on the basis of disability. Means of egress is where areas near stairs or exits that people can wait at for help from fire department or until heavy traffic is gone in an emergency. Universal design is making buildings accessible to a wide range of users, whereas the POUR acronym stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. These guidelines help think about users' needs while in the design process. Taking all of these guidelines in the design process of a building helps create an inclusive and usable one. Something that Brooks Library can change, and change affordably, is to create accessible signage. This project's research question is, how adequately does Brooks Library adhere to the selected sections related to means of egress in Chapter 7 of the 2010 ADA standards? To investigate how adequate the signage of Brooks Library is for various types of users, I used ADA reviews. While I was doing these reviews, observation skills were used in a walkthrough of Brooks Library, as well as a phone to take photos and notes for data collection. For specific measurements, a measurement tape was used. Because the research project did not require human subjects, there is no requirement for the Human Subject Review Board approval.
The project's findings are that Brooks Library is 77% adherent to the 2010 ADA standards, which means that the building is not adherent because in order to prevent death or injury, a building must follow the standards 100%. The only sign that is adherent to the ADA are the area of refuge signs. The library does not label each sign, resulting in difficult wayfinding. The project's discussion is that the findings correlated with what I learned in my literature review because people with disabilities were not considered when Brooks Library was first built. The value of this project is to create a safer and more inclusive building by preventing death and injury by following the 2010 ADA standards.
After completing my project, I realized that I could have extended the project over 3 quarters. instead of 2 because it was very time limited alongside a full-time credit load. I would have loved to do an ADA audit for each of the signs on whether or not they're consistent throughout the library. But because of my time limited, measurements were based on the back area of refuge sign on the 4th floor of the library.
My recommendations is to add in fire alarms with both sound and flashing lights in all rooms, updating signs to include Braille, updating information signs, and making sure that signs are clear of obstacles such as trash cans. Limitations for this project is that it was limited to 2 quarters when I could have done 3, and that I am always learning and improving on my accessibility knowledge and skills as I go.
My next steps include sending my findings to Lauren Wideck, who is a user experience librarian and lecturer at Central Washington University. I worked at her previously for the ADA audits that I conducted in spring of 2022. Next steps for me include walking on June 10th, and then I have 1 online summer quarter of 12 credits. I would love to continue providing a space to discuss accessibility issues within a wide range of communities.